Everyone. Hey, thanks for having me today to talk at the New Venture Challenge. It's always fun to kind of be able to kick things off and talk about how to pick a business. I'm Paul Berbarian, and no, I'm not in Singapore. I'm actually in my basement. I don't know if you can see my virtual background, but when the basement isn't really exciting, so I figured I'd do something here with a fun virtual background. Anyhow, I'm going to spend about 15 minutes today talking about how to pick a business. So all of you are kind of like starting to think about this whole entrepreneurial thing. And I've put together a presentation. I've started like 8 or 9 businesses in my career. Some have gone really well. Some have gone public. Some have been utter failures. And happy to share my story with folks if they're interested after the fact. But today I'm going to just basically share some of my learnings on how I think about new ideas and kind of create a framework for you guys to evaluate. So with that, I am going to share my screen here with the presentation here. Give me a second. Click. And here we go. So picking a business idea. So this is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me after this if you have any questions. I know it's a condensed time frame today, so only 15 minutes per speaker, so there's not a lot of time for Q&A. But if you put your questions into the chat, we can kind of consolidate them, send them out, and I'm happy to respond, or you can reach out directly. But if you do, just basically say how we met, so I kind of have context. Otherwise, I get a whole bunch of random emails, and I don't know where they come from. So if you want me to respond, just say, hey, you spoke at the New Venture Challenge kickoff on how to pick a business, and then I'll have context. All right. So what's the purpose of picking a business? Well, obviously, you want to pick a winner, right? You want to make some money. Like, businesses are to be profitable. Yes, there are socially responsible businesses, and those are all cool. But ultimately, businesses have to be self-sustaining, and you need to make money. So you want to make sure that where you're going to put your time, your energy, and your effort, you're going to be successful. So there's really 5 things, 5 core steps we're going to talk about. These are them. It starts off, but if you want like the cheat sheet, this is it. So let's go into the first one. So what do I mean by know yourself? A lot of people are going to spend more time with their business than they are going to be spending with their loved ones. You're going to spend almost every waking moment, especially in the startup phase. And you better be doing something you love, and you better be doing something you're good at, and you better be doing it where you want to live. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable. So do you want to be, kicking it by the beach, selling, surfboard wax to surfers? Or do you want to be on Wall Street, providing services to financial institutions? Figure out what really drives you and use that as one of the key criteria on how you pick a business. Because if there's a mismatch, you're going to know it so quickly, and it's going to be a failure. You got to do something you're good at. You got to do something you love. So let's go in and start talking about the different types, what I call angles. What is the unique advantage each of these businesses have that create a unique differentiator? Because if you're going to start a business, you just don't want to replicate someone else. You want to have some unique offering or angle in terms of how you're going to dominate a particular segment of the market. So the first is roll up. And I don't talk a lot about this because it's taking a whole bunch of small companies, jamming them into one company, and then you have something big. And a lot of the telecom companies in America today, Verizon, AT&T, are a combination of dozens and dozens and dozens of acquisitions, and they combine them together and create one massive national network. You guys are early in your careers. This is something you might do later, so this may not be the right framework on how to think about a business, but I just wanted to put it out there. But there's a better way. A lot of you guys are going to come up with something, better. It's a better mousetrap. It's a better, ShamWow. It's a better, way to peel potatoes. A lot of cool ideas and a lot of successes actually come from having an actual better widget. So is that kind of going to be your unique angle? And you can also think about it in terms of services. Like, I have a better service. Like, we're going to go over the top and be so much high quality. That's another way of, kind of think about things. But a lot of you guys are going to come up with ideas that fit into here. And once again, I want you to just kind of think of this framework on what is a unique kind of positioning of your idea. There's this notion of better, faster, cheaper. They always say choose 2. You can't do all 3. But this is also a fantastic way to kind of start thinking about better, coming up with business ideas and the frameworks around that. You can think of something like a FedEx, right? They were faster and they were better than the US Postal Service, but they weren't cheaper. But they serviced something that was really important, and it turned into this massive, massive company. So this is another way, and most services fall into this category. New approaches, right? You've all witnessed this in the course of your lifetime. First, it was from vinyl to CDs, and then it's from CDs to MP3s, and now it's from MP3s to streaming. But you've seen, technology being applied to the old way of doing business. A ton of SaaS-based companies fall into this category, where they look at the way things were being done in the past, come up with a new, simpler way of doing it, and present it to the market. So if you're thinking about a service-based company and you want to apply technology to it, you really want to think about, well, how are they doing it before, and how can we do it in the future? And I use music here because you all can relate to that. And then pure invention. Okay, so you're at in university, and some crazy professor, she comes up with the next flubber or the next particle accelerator technique or something like that. Chances are none of you guys are kind of the pure inventors, but you may know people who have pure inventions. Typically comes out of university environments, could come out of some corporate research labs. But the challenge here is these usually take a long time to kind of go from idea to something practical. So I don't think a lot of you guys are going to come up with stuff that's pure invention. And just because you patent something doesn't mean it's invention. This is something the world has never seen before, not like some clever, screwdriver. It is, it's pure, brilliant ideas. New material sciences kind of fall into this category. And then geography. A lot of people don't think about this, but geography is a fantastic way to kind of build around a business idea. Like, hey, it was really successful in the US. Let's take it to Europe. Obviously McDonald's, I think this is Amsterdam or Paris or something. Put something in a place that was successful and see if you can replicate it in another place. Every gas station is an example of a geography business. Like, oh, there's no gas on this corner. We could perhaps sell it. So geography could be a really cool differentiator. So those are just some of the key frameworks, but really try to come up with the simple, like, what is really a differentiator for us? And then once you do that, I want you to do this. I want you to do the hard thing first. Like, what does that mean? What I try to mean here is I want you to try to kill your business, right, in the first 24 hours. So think about, like, your idea. Like, you're going to come up with an idea and you go, okay, well, what's the hardest thing? Like, if the hardest thing is like, we got to build an app, that's not hard because 1 million people have built an app. Think about something that very few people have ever done before in the context of your business, and then see if you can actually do that, right? It could be the financial metrics. Like, I don't know if there's enough margin in this because we're buying something for $1 and selling it for $1.02. Can we have enough volume to actually generate that? So this is typically a point where I have a lot of audience participation, where we kind of explore the hard ideas. But since we don't have that today, you can put some of your ideas in the chat or email me before, but it really takes a little bit of experience to figure out what that one hard thing is. But so for example, if you're trying to do a two-sided marketplace and you said, well, of course everyone wants to sell their home, but we got to get people to buy homes on the other side. It's a two-sided marketplace for buying and selling homes. Then you have to decide, is it the supply side or the demand side that is the hard piece, and focus your energy there. And like, well, how are we going to solve that? You don't have to solve it, but you have to have confidence that you can solve that hard thing very, very quickly. And if you can't, like, if you don't get a lot of confidence around your ability to solve that hard thing, like, we got to get 1 million users before we can make money. If you don't have a lot of confidence, shut that business idea down and go on to the next one. The whole idea here is to cycle through a whole bunch of ideas, because I'm pretty sure, not that you suck, but all of your ideas suck. And the reason is, unless you start going through a lot of these, you're really not going to build essentially the equivalent of muscle memory, right? So if you want to get in shape and you do 1 push-up, you can't call that being in shape. You did 1 push-up, but if you did 1,000 push-ups, well, you're probably in shape. It's the same with business ideas. If you're going to pick a business idea, just don't pick one. Come up with a whole slew of them, and pick ideas that you know you won't do, but it's a good mental exercise to kind of look at the hard thing, evaluate the economics, do your research, and then focus on it for maybe, a few hours to a day. And so you start building up this experience, right? This capability. Because as I think about picking a business idea, volume matters in terms of looking at things. Think about a venture capitalist. They look at thousands and thousands of ideas, but they only invest in 10. Well, if you're picking a business, you should look at a whole bunch of ideas and only pick the one. So if you're just coming up with one idea, statistically speaking, it's a bad one. But you got to iterate, and think, okay? So it's a challenge, it's a homework assignment for you. And then, this is like, a lot of people think you could just search Google and come up with answers. And yeah, there's a lot of information on Google, so I don't want to discourage you using the internet. But if you really are getting deep into an idea, start talking to people, start sharing your idea, start talking to people who might have been former employees of competitors. Call up the ex-head of sales of that company that did what you want to do, and ask them what some of the challenges they faced. And if you say you're a student, if you say you're doing research, and you say you're looking for advice, people are going to help. If you say you're asking for money, you're not going to get a single return phone call. So just, present yourself open, be very transparent, do your research, but talk to people, right? Do your online research, but get out there and talk to real people, talk to customers, talk to users, talk to former employees of folks that used to work in the industry, talk to regulators, talk to whoever might have germane information about your business idea. Because the goal here is to actually pick the magical idea, the golden egg, find the fantastic business idea amongst a sea of thousands and thousands of ideas. Look, most businesses fail. It's a statistic. I've had more failures than I've had successes. But when the successes come, they're fantastic. They're over the top. They make up for all of the hard years of not making it happen. And so there's a sense of resilience, but there's also a sense of getting up and sticking to it and trying again and again and again. So if you're going to take one thing out of this presentation, understand that picking a business is an iterative process. It's not, sitting around with some beers and just coming up with the magical idea and you're now the next, Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. Those are great stories and they do happen, but chances are you gotta cycle on a whole bunch of ideas, especially if you have a nice, domain, framework of what you want to focus on, as I shared at the beginning. And my one last thing here is this. So what is this, right? You can put your answers in the chat section here, see who gets it. It's not an O, so it's the other thing that looks like an O. It's a 0. Now, why do I have a 0 here? Well, I have this because I want you to all embrace your inner 0. You're all zeros right now. Chances are none of you have $10 million cash in your bank account. You all are at a moment in time in your life where you can take the greatest risk because you don't have that much to lose. As you get older, hold on, my lights go off every 60 minutes. So I gotta turn them on. That's my basement for you, sorry. Okay, real quick. You're all zeros. So embrace your inner 0 and take a chance, because this is the time in your life where if you fail, you can easily pick yourself up. When you got a mortgage and you have kids in college and car payments, you can't go to 0. The consequences are too high. So take this moment, be bold. This is the time to really go out and explore and take all of your learnings and apply them and go into the great wild blue yonder and learn from experience. So with that, I'm going to leave you again with my email address. Please reach out. Don't forget to say how we chatted. Thank you, everyone. I hope you had a great, I hope you're having a great day of, all these different sessions, and reach out if I can help, and good luck. Thank you. Bye-bye.